evening and welcome to the regular school board meeting for Independent School District 833. It's Thursday, November 1st, 2018, 6:30 p.m. and we are at the District Service Center in Cottage Grove, Minnesota. 1.0 is roll call.
Pat Driscoll.
Present.
Heather Hirsch.
Present.
Michelle Whitty is absent. Katie Schwartz.
Here.
Sharon Van Leer.
Here.
Ron Kath.
Here.
Tracy Brunette.
Here. 2.0, please stand and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
3.0 is the approval of our agenda, and we will be adding 10.2, which is the approval of a resolution to support a Minnesota State High School League grant. So with that one change, I will entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
So moved by Sharon and second by Katie. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. 4.0 are district highlights. That will be on our November 15th agenda. And 5.0 is public comments. That will also be an agenda item on November 15th. 6.0 are the consent items. All consent items are considered routine and non-controversial by the board and will be approved by a single motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items, but prior to the meeting, board members had the opportunity to review them and could have requested that any of the items be moved to an action item. So we have none this evening, so I will entertain a motion to approve our consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
So moved by Sharon and second by Pat. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. 7.0 are workshop items, and 7.1 is our culturally and linguistically responsive teaching strategies. Trina Patterson, our educational achievement and integration coordinator, will present.
Good evening, Chair Brunette, school board members, and Dr. Jacobus. I'm excited tonight to introduce our two CLRT coaches, Gina Spoo and Jennifer Terry. And CLRT stands for Culturally, Linguistically Responsive Teaching. Please understand that when we say culture, we're not talking about race. It's a way of life. Culture is a way of life. It's a meaning in the way that people do things and their traditions. So aligning with our achievement and integration plan and goal number 2 of the strategic plan, which is related to culture and climate for students, we have been focusing on culturally responsive professional development for all staff in the district for the past 3 years. The goal being to engage all students and increase academic achievement for all students and focusing on underserved students. And a piece of that professional development that you may recall hearing about has been facilitated by Dr. Shiraki Holly. Dr. Holly has done large group professional developments for all the teachers in the district for the past 2 years. And in addition, he has been providing one-on-one coaching for cohorts in the classrooms in individual schools. And to this date, we have had cohorts of 10 to 12 teachers in 11 of our schools that have been coached by Dr. Holly. And there are 7 additional schools that will be coached this year. As a part of our plan to sustain the CLRT coaching, we now have 2 internal coaches whom you will hear from shortly, and they're going to explain their role in the school district and demonstrate some of the strategies that they have shared with the teachers in our district to create a culturally responsive classroom district-wide. So now I would like to introduce to you Gina Spoo and Jennifer Terry.
Hi, thank you for having us tonight. We appreciate the time. We're going to tell you a little bit about who we are. I'm Jennifer Terry, and I come to you recently from District 622, where I was an instructional coach there, as well as worked with the district office on creating the vision and mission statement for the district around cultural responsiveness. A piece of that was moving towards a employee review, a part of the employee review process that included culturally responsive practices. I also work for Dr. Shiraki Holly as a consultant for schools, connecting them and their buildings to culturally responsive practices, which includes working with principals, working with their leadership teams to make sure that they're, not only the teachers are trained, but that practices within their building change and become equitable for all students. I also coach teachers through the process that the teachers here are going through, and I'm really excited about being able to do that in 833. The other part of my life is I work with providing resources to teachers as they bring this back to their students, because it's not enough just to have the teachers know, but really to impact and empower the students, they need to understand what is culture and how it impacts them and make sense of this world. So that socio-political consciousness piece I support as well.
Hello, my name is Gina Spoo, and I, along with Jennifer, am the culturally responsive coach in the district, and I have been in education for the past 20 years. I come from the Hopkins School District, where I was a classroom teacher for 13 years, and then I moved into leadership in various roles, from literacy coach to peer coach to a CLR internal coach in the Hopkins School District, in conjunction with the collaboration that Hopkins has with Edina Public Schools, working with both districts. And in that role, I supported the culturally responsiveness in classrooms coaching, really focusing in Hopkins with the new staff coming in, making sure they have the training that is needed, that staff that have been there longer have already had. In addition to that work, I work as a consultant for Dr. Holly in the Midwest, in many different districts around the Midwest, in Wisconsin and here in Minnesota. In addition to that, I still do some consulting work with Edina and Hopkins as well, working with a lot of professional development to help teachers see the urgency and see the purpose and see the understanding of what it is and what it looks like and what it should feel like in a classroom. So that is what brought me to this work. And so Jennifer and I both are part-time in the district, focusing on a lot of things, but our three main things that are up on the screen. So one thing is to support the schools and teachers as they go through the first-time coaching process with Dr. Holly. And as Trina mentioned, we have 7 schools this year starting that process. So Jennifer and I are working with all of those schools to help with the professional development and prepare them for success in that journey. In addition to that, we are bringing additional teachers through that coaching cycle from sites that completed the first-time coaching the last 2 years. So working with coaching another cohort, our goal really is to have all teachers coached in all buildings. Our third thing is supporting schools and teachers with additional professional development at site and district level. So we're doing a lot of professional development in buildings that request it, and also just through the ETLs in the district, supporting their work with the professional development they are doing at the sites. And so with that, what is CLRT? We see that acronym a lot, and I know we've introduced it as culturally and linguistically responsive teaching. But with it is, here are the definitions for you, and I'm going to have you help me out using a protocol we use with teachers and students to build that collaboration and community in the classroom. We're going to use drop-in reading. So on the first one, anything in that black box that is red, we're going to communally and collaboratively read it together. So I'm going to have you help out. So we're going to start out right away with that CLRT. So you guys help me out. CLRT is going where the students are
culturally and linguistically
for the purposes of bringing them where they need to be academically.
CLRT
is the
opposite of the think approach
to teaching and learning or traditional schooling. And so culturally and linguistically responsive teaching is then. It's the validation and affirmation of the home culture and home language for the purposes of building and bridging the student to success in the culture of school and mainstream society. And so with that, this work is for all students, is to have all students feel valued, supported in school, and be successful, and to see themselves valued with instruction, with how teachers talk and relate and teach kids.
Okay, so why do we need CLRT in District 833? Well, the base answer for that is because children traditionally, historically, have been taught a very specific way in our school district, utilizing the elements you see on the board. Our instruction's typically quiet, it's teacher-centered, there's competitive, it's time-specific, we use precise time, there's turn taking, a lot of turn taking. Everyone has to wait for their turn. Many verbal communications, one way, and so it's a lot of intrapersonal inside. And what we know about students and we know about learners is that we don't all bring to the table those traditional elements. What we bring to the table sometimes are different elements, and especially our underserved students. They're not coming in with the idea and the understanding or the knowledge of how to be traditional, how to be individualism, so to speak, be able to be in an environment when it's all about them. You know, I grew up with my mom saying, you know, mind your own business, you know, handle it yourself, it's all about you. And a lot of our schools like that. But our students come from many different backgrounds. When we talk about culture, it's not race. Race is static. It's biological. Culture is how we view the world. It's the choices we choose to make. It's how we view right or wrong. It's how we view that communication piece. And so it's really important that the students who are more sociocentric, meaning they learn socially, their social group is super important, or students that really prefer that spontaneity. And spontaneity isn't just like picking up and doing something on the spur of the moment. It's the ability to get up and move when they feel like they need to move. That relative timing, where when one thing ends, when one thing we're doing that's super important ends, then we move on. The overlap. In my family, there's a lot of jump-in talking. So people come to visit us, they're like, oh, like how you people are so rude. Or when I'm bringing that into a meeting. When kids bring it into the classroom, it's considered negative. And so what we're talking about is switching our thinking to only thinking that traditional elements count and only traditional elements are okay. We need to be trained in, we need to get our teachers moving along the continuum to include these elements that students bring in. And I am not a typical what you'd consider an underserved student if you think of it strictly from ethnicity. But I was certainly one in school. So the idea that every student who comes through our doors needs to be met with learning that embraces who they are culturally speaking.
So we are going to take a look at two of those elements here. And you have a handout in front of you. And so exactly what's on the screen is on your handout. So on the top, we're going to use precise time. And we're going to take, I would like 1 minute to read through what it says about being individualism and the example, and then read through communalism and the example. So just take 1 minute silently to read that on your own. So when we look at this, the element of communalism and individualism, it's a continuum. So on one end we have individualism, on the other end we have communalism, and we fluctuate back and forth depending on where we're at. We culture switch depending on who we're with and who we're talking to. And often, so we think about there isn't just one way. They're both positive and both needed. And so supporting teachers with bringing in both elements in the classroom. And so to think about that, we're going to start with a individual activity. So you'll notice on your handout the first protocol. And we use that word protocol a lot with teachers, and we want teachers to use that with students so the students understand the structure of what they're doing and the purpose behind it. We're going to start with a quick write. So again, this is individual, intrapersonal, and you're going to start with which cultural element do you lean more towards? Is it individualism or communalism? So first think of that, and then take about 1 minute to name one positive thing you associate with each. And write that down on the lines provided. Okay, now we're going to shift into more of a communal activity, and even thinking about as you were working through that intrapersonal individual activity, for some of us adults too, it gets long and hard. We want to talk, we want to move, and the same for our kids, but they need to experience both to be successful with both. So we're going to shift now into a communal activity. So we're going to use a protocol called stand up, hand up, pair up. So we are going to get up and move. And this protocol is simple as the name of it. So we're going to stand up, we're going to put our hand up, and we're going to find someone else with their hand up. We're going to high five, say hello, greet them. And we're going to share our thinking, share what we wrote for our quick write, quickly back and forth. And then as soon as both of you have shared, you put your hand up again, and that's that visual cue to find a new partner. And we're just going to do it twice. Once you've talked with 2 different people, you can head back to your seat. Okay, so stand up, hand up.
Oh, Lord. Oh, my God. So what are we supposed to do?
To signal heading back to your seats, I'm going to say we are, and you're going to respond with moving on. We are.
Moving on.
We are.
Moving on.
We are.
Moving on.
We are.
So looking at those activities, this is the work we're supporting with teachers with that vabbing, that validate, affirm, build, and bridge juxtapositions. How do we build in the validate, affirm activities and the build and bridge together? And so the traditional school culture activity was that quick write, which I mentioned, which was that more intrapersonal, static, teacher-centered, individual accountability, right? Each kid had to have that written piece. And then we moved into more that we look at the underserved culture, the validate, affirm aspect would be that stand up, hand up, pair up, that interpersonal, that sociocentrism, that social piece that I noticed during that time. There was more laughing, there's more dialogue, that more social piece. And then bringing in that kinesthetic, that movement, subjectiveness, and communal, building that understanding communally together. That's that goal, that back and forth, that we're supporting teachers with understanding.
So what we want to do is we kind of want to take you a little bit further into understanding individual and communalism and how they relate. And really a lot of those elements, those cultural elements we showed you, exist on a continuum. But we're just going to take one tonight. And so we've been talking about individualism, right? That's about me. I'm accountable for myself. And on this end, you would have the communalism, we is more important. So think of the continuum as if on this end was boiling water, right? Down here it's boiling. What would be on the other end? Yeah, ice, frozen, right? And so that's what the cultural elements are. So on this end, actually, we can't all stand. We're actually going to do this, so I better go over here, okay? So on this end would be individualism, okay? So if you're thinking about yourself, and on your quick write, you were like, you know what? I'm really here. This is where I exist. I am very individualistic. I really take responsibility for myself. That's the way I teach my students and my kids. Then you move down here, and this is communalism, right? Where we is more important than me. These students in class are talking, and sometimes they're tardy because they're trying to help their friends get places, and it's so important that they handle their friends and make sure that their community is safe. Okay? So I want you to think about where you think you are. And a continuum, of course, has the middle, right? So in my journey, when I started out, I was very much over here. And this is how I taught. And when I realized that a lot of my kids weren't here, I was like, well, now what? How am I going to get everybody engaged? To engage them, I have to bring in their cultural element. And so myself, personally, I have moved. So I now live more here. So what I'd like you to do is think about where you are on this continuum. Individualism down here, communalism down here. Would you just come stand in the continuum with me? So you bring us in and you don't get to just sit. I'm sorry.
It's not how you teach, it's how you personally kind of land.
Yes, exactly.
It's really going to throw us off, Andy.
You can clump. You don't need to be in a line. All right. I want you to just take a look and look at how we as a small group, the school board and other members of our leadership are here, and we're not all on one side, are we? We're across the way. We've got people that are very communal and people that really find themselves down here in individual. So if you think about the students we're trying to reach, we're trying to reach all of our students, every single one of them. And to know that and to reach them, we have to know who's here and who's there, and how do we create activities that engage all of them. Okay? And so that's what this work is about, engaging all of our learners in a way that meets their cultural elements. And in this case, we're talking about individualism and communalism. All right, thank you. Have a seat. Thank you for indulging us and being a part of that, because I think that visual, that piece of us being on that continuum can kind of stand for those, what is it, we have 13,000, 18,000 students? That's a lot of students. And if you can imagine them on this continuum, and imagine if all of our teachers understood that our kids are coming to us in many different ways with many different cultural elements. That's what this work is about. It's about understanding and making our students feel valued despite or because of their cultural elements. What was once not accepted, spontaneity, we call it blurting out, right? Communalism, sociocentric, talking with friends, that's typically been historically not included in our teaching, and we need to be doing that for all students. So that's really what we had tonight. If you want to learn more, Jean and I would be happy to come back and take you through some more learning.
Thank you.
I would say, as we talked about, this was with our culture and climate. Part of the strategic plan, it really focused on that personalization also. As you know, where kids are, understanding what they need when you're teaching, but also assessing. I mentioned a number of times, but when I was in Colorado and you said hot dish, I'd be thinking something completely different than I think about now in Minnesota. And that can happen in assessments too, where kids are cued one way and they think about something and we're on a completely different page as teachers. So these were just a few of the techniques, but there is a wealth of different ways to pull kids in, and that's the coaching and training. The other thing that's wonderful that you've heard about is the coaching, because most of the time as teachers, we go to a workshop, we're trained in something, then we go back and implement it on our own and hope we're doing it right. But to have someone come in and coach and help has been really wonderful. And then now having our own folks here, Jennifer and Gina, really moves us forward.
Anyone have questions?
Maybe just a quick one. Understanding how we're doing it with our staff, how do we take it to the kids then too? How do you get the kids in the class to understand that this is happening too, so they know how to relate maybe a little bit to their teacher too?
Ron, that is I'd tell you to kiss your brain if you were in my class, because that's an amazing question. Really, that gets to the why, right? So when we're talking to teachers and we're introducing them to culture responsive practices, we stress the why. They need to understand the why. They need to understand what individualism and communalism is. They need to understand how it looks in their classroom, how it shows up in their classroom. And then when they introduce a protocol to the students, just like Gina and I did tonight, talking to you about what those meant and how they were showing up in the activities. When a teacher introduces a protocol, the expectation is they teach the students why. And part of that is teaching them about the cultural elements themselves, so students can understand what is communalism. Once they start understanding who they are, and they start understanding that's what's happening is we're having a cultural misunderstanding in the classroom, right? The teachers sending messages are being sent in one way, and the students receiving messages are coming in a different way. And so once you start having those conversations once the teachers get it and can articulate it, they can articulate it with our students. And then our students are going to be able to understand, and they're even going to be able to stand up and articulate what they need, right? They're going to be able to say, you know what? You've been talking the whole hour. I'm having a lot of trouble. I need to move. You understand that I am sociocentric. I've had no time to process. For me, I'm a verbal processor. And in school, I didn't get to do that. I was a kid that talks too much, right? I've ever seen that on the report cards. And so what the teacher can do is they can understand, I understand you're a verbal processor. And so I'm going to make sure that I give you time to process verbally in the classroom through the use of this protocol. Stand up, hand up, pair up.
And I will add on to that just an example here from a teacher in this district who has been coached. I was in the classroom, and she had taught the why, and it was a math lesson, and she was using musical shares. It's a protocol we use that builds in music and movement and collaboration. And she quickly, because she had taught the why, she already taught it, and so she just reminded the kids, hey, I need 3 people to tell us why we're doing this. It was beautiful. The hands went up, several hands, and one student said, because we are collaborating and we are a community, and this is exact words from kids. Another student said, because there's music and moving, and some of us like to dance. But then another kid raised their hand and said, it pushes some of us out of our comfort zone. And so right there, it was clear that teacher had taught why and helped the kids see that they're going to be able to learn in many different ways. And so that's an example of students understanding that. So yeah, great question.
Cool. Anyone else? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
8.0 information items. 8.0. That was fun. 8.1 is showcase on Gray Cloud and Armstrong Elementary Schools, and we have Laura Loshek from Gray Cloud and Andy Caflisch from Armstrong.
All right. Chair Burnett, board members, Dr. Jacobus, and distinguished cabinet members. It's a pleasure to be, and Brian. All right. It's a pleasure to be here. We were asked to. We were asked to spend 5 or 10 minutes talking about personalization and how that happens in our schools. And keeping to 5 or 10 minutes, I identified, it looks like a lot of information up there, but I identified just a few things we do. It happens across our system, K-12, but it naturally happens in the elementary schools, personalizing just the way we're structured with kids in classrooms. And so on here, I'm going to talk about a character component that we work with, and then also an academic component. And I'll start the academic piece by going back to when I and many of you were in elementary school. And from my experience in the River Falls public school system, I was taught at a grade level. We don't teach at a grade level anymore. We teach at instructional levels where kids are at and take them, and particularly in reading. So. Value of a confident reader and how we get kids to be confident readers. If you take a look, thank you. Thank you. Nope, you're good. If you take a look at the different reading levels that we have for students A to Z, we have quick reads, which are materials and resources that we have in place that are high interest at multiple different reading levels for students to engage kids in the event of successful reading and pushing them at their instructional level. A variety of fiction and nonfiction materials. Our classroom libraries are set up as leveled libraries so kids know what their instructional reading level is, and they pick books that are going to make them feel comfortable and confident in their reading. We at Armstrong do what's called Driven to Read. It's a year-round program. We keep our media center open in the summer. It's an awesome resource we have. And so we have students coming in throughout the week and getting books at their level, taking them home, bringing them back, reading with a teacher, and parents are a part of that piece as well. One of the neat things we recently did just last year was we converted our media center to look more like a bookstore. So our genres are in areas that students can find with their level of interest. So it's more about levels of interest and levels of reading as opposed to some sort of a numbered system that's confusing to students. Reading A to Z, RAS kids, a number of elementary schools use that. That's a leveled intervention program for kids. Read Naturally is another intervention piece, and so is the LLI. New with us this year, we have something that we call Win Time, What I Need, and it's tied into our balanced literacy block with students, and that's a 30-minute block of time where we specifically do small group interventions with every single student in every single grade level. And in that time, we have intermediate and primary intervention support, we have the special education support, the EL support, and like I said, the personalization around that comes in taking the kids where they're at instructionally in very small groups and moving forward with them. And then the character social piece, these are just a couple strategies we have in place. We have what's called the Armstrong rocket traits. And we go through, we just started on compassion. You can see we started with responsibility and then optimism, compassion. We work through those different traits with our students throughout the school year. And in that, part of that system, we do what's called a shout-out. And tomorrow morning, we'll make our announcements for our weekly shout-outs for our students. And as we're starting in November with compassion, teachers will be looking for compassionate activities kids are engaged in the classroom. Teachers will fill out, this is an example of a shout out, and then the student's name and what they were doing in the classroom is read out loud on the announcements. Those kids all come down to the media center for a picture that goes out in our newsletter, and their shout outs are posted on a bulletin board in our main entrance. And it's a really important part of what we do from a character perspective because we really want to recognize the positive that's happening with students. So the personalization is making that connection back to kids about what they're doing good in the building and how they are supporting that communal component that we have and supporting the environment and climate we have at Armstrong. And then new for us this year, something, it's called Auto Be Good. And when you look up there, if you've ever seen the movie Cars, it's an engaging social character development component we have on Monday mornings. There's an Auto Be Good component that ties into our character development, and then each of the classrooms throughout that week in their morning meetings has a conversation with the students about that lesson that was taught. So if you're ever around on a Monday morning at about 8:45, you can check out one of our Auto Be Good. It's been a real positive thing with students. It's very engaging and age appropriate for elementary students. And then I just want to make a shout out here real quickly in talking about personalization, some of the things we do in our buildings. Armstrong started last year with weekend food packs. And every Friday morning we have 59 separate individual packs of snacks that are delivered to the building. And that's a partnership with the Grove UMC and Good in the Hood. And throughout the day on Friday, those packs make it into students' backpacks. And those are snacks that they take home for the weekend, so they've got a snack. And these are targeted students that we work with the families to set up a program and really personalize what we can be doing as a school and community to support the kids at home. So that's where we're at with a few of our strategies at Armstrong. Questions for me now, or you want to wait until after Laura goes?
I do, or we wait? Okay. So you talked a little bit about your character development work, and I know Cottage Grove Middle School is recognized as a school of character, and so I'm wondering if you're integrating any of your work or if you're using the same framework that they were using, or if it's connected.
So is there a collaboration between what we're doing at Armstrong and how it ties into Cottage Grove Middle School? Is that the question? Absolutely. I just can't tell you exactly how that works because, no, we haven't had that conversation about how it carries over from one to the other, but that's a great idea, and that's something I can certainly check into.
The program or framework that they're using can be used K-12, so I think also, even if it's not a how is it connected, I think it's a good framework. It's comprehensive around both the adults and the students, so I think it might be good to, it's always good to have sort of a framework that you're aligning that work to, because I think then it's good to know, like, are we touching all those boxes across the school year? So.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea too, now that we feed into Cottage Grove Middle School, so I will definitely have that conversation. And without knowing for certain, I'm sure a lot of the components tie into the work they're doing, but like you said, having a consistent framework for our students as they move through the system makes perfect sense.
Andy, I saw that one day I was there, the Ought to Be Good, that segment for the week. Do they have something, they have a segment every week that you'll go through? And I'm curious where you found the program. It was engaging, and the kids it was interesting, the questions and the concepts they talked about after.
Yep, there's 28 different lessons they have that have been selected that we're going to be doing weekly. And we have a climate committee that actually worked with our PTO, so it was purchased in collaboration with our PTO. And the climate committee is the group of people that recommended this as work we were doing with our students this year. And it's been a real positive start. Any other questions?
Well, thank you for having me in tonight along with Andy. We kind of collaborated on what he was going to share and then what I would share from the Gray Cloud perspective, because much as what we do at the elementary schools hopefully aligns with each other. So some of the things that you hear at Armstrong should be happening at Gray Cloud and other elementary schools as well. So what I wanted to talk about is a little bit about how we set the stage for the year at Gray Cloud. What we've been doing for about 2 years now is it sounds like individualism, but it starts as individualism because we really want to get to know our kids. We have a focus of it starts with me. And when we say it starts with me, that's for students and staff. It is really meant to be empowering, that we really believe that we should get to know you and that we should help you from where you start. And we also believe that everybody should be taking care of themselves and again, feeling the confidence in order to engage in what we're doing. So we really take time at the beginning of the year to do those things. And so we added this year building bridges, because as we build a community and work on communalism, we really want to make sure that we are all getting to know each other. So one of the things we do that we start with at the beginning of the year is we have things across the school that we all do. And one is that we create these suns. And every staff member and every student are pictured in our hallways. And they have different elements that they first build their sun upon and share within their classroom settings. And as a staff, we share them amongst each other first to make sure we know each other. So it might be things you're grateful for, things that are hard for you, things you want to get better at. And so if you walk through our Gray Cloud hallways, we almost have them all hung up now and strung together, that all of our full community of staff and students are pictured. So again, we're really working on getting to know each other in that personalized way. So that's something you'll see as an overarching theme at Gray Cloud. And then what I wanted to talk about is things that we do monthly. So we wanted to not only tie into the academic pieces, and of course there's many academic components to all of these pieces, but we do have monthly themes that we center ourselves around, and it fits with kind of where we see kids and where we see adults through the school year. And again, the whole purpose of it is we really want to build relationships. When you look at the research, and I know Brian has had us really work into a lot of Hattie's work, relationships not only amongst the teacher and the student, but relationships amongst staff members, and really working in collaboration is just key to success. So the more we can do that's in common, and the more that we can do, again, we set at staff meetings, and then we carry out in our classrooms, really helps us as a community build those relationships and do the good work we hope we are doing. And so it really focuses on that personalized approach, not only for our students, but also for our staff. And so what we do is we have monthly themes, that we have a committee, and then we break into some more smaller work groups that really have a theme for each month of the year. So when we talk about September at Gray Cloud, we have a PBIS-style positive support system where we talk about being safe, organized, accountable, and respectful. And we really work in the month of September teaching kids what that means, and really that involves them in the process. What does it mean to be safe in the media center? What does it mean to be organized when you're in music? What does it mean to be accountable when you're eating your walking taco in the lunchroom? It means you've got to clean it up. So, I mean, believe me, we review those things. And so we want them to be able to carry these across the context. And so we spend a lot of our September really setting the stage. And also, just like Mr. Caflisch said, we also reward with positives our SOAR tickets. We were looking for kids to be doing the things that we're teaching. As we get into October, we have a kindness month, and that's kind of how we approach anti-bullying. We really don't want to talk specifically just about bullying. We want to talk about the replacement of being kind rather than bullying. So that's kind of how we lead that. So we're just, obviously, we just flipped the page. We're now in November, and we'd have Grateful at Gray Cloud Month. And so we'll have lots of activities that I'll be talking about in just a moment. December, we focus on celebrating everybody. In January is a time where kids have a little cabin fever and we need to refocus. So we have a mindfulness and movement month. We bring in some of our great strategies of how we can really focus our bodies. We can sometimes bring in some yoga calm and some different pieces that really just help us keep our minds in the game. In February is I Love to Read and Learn month, that we really talk about the power of learning and certainly connect that to just loving reading and also just loving learning and being interested. When we talk about March, that's our M&M month. It is not a candy month. It is math and music. Years ago, the staff felt like math was left out, and we really needed to make sure math was included, so we have fun activities that we do that month as well. And the music, during that month, we have kids playing music in the morning, signing up to sing. So when you walk in, you have just a whole different feel when that month is going on. And April is Grit and Goals month, which really, when we talk about our high-stake testing with our kids, it can be a little stressful, but we want to be able to teach them how do you power through that? How do you set a goal for yourself, and how do you achieve that? So we really have that school-wide focus. And then May, we have Soaring Now and Beyond, which we talk about college and career readiness, and also kind of revisiting in our lives being safe and organized, accountable and respectful really takes us far. So we try to kind of circle back throughout the year. So as we look into the next slide, we just finished Kindness Month, and just to give you a little taste of what kind of the months might feel like, when we talk about Kindness Month in the month of October, we start with Kindness and Chalk, where we start writing kind messages out on the sidewalk, and so staff are out there with chalk, the kids come and join us, and we encourage our families to start a trail from their homes to our school with really just writing kind messages. And so that's how we kick it off. We also have a calendar of events, which I'll show you an example of in October. But during Kindness Month, we have different challenges. Some of the challenges might be sit by somebody different at lunch, compliment 3 people, so something very specific. And again, we don't want it to take a lot of time and energy, but we want to keep that daily focus on these different school-wide events. We also had a kindness assembly this year with 3M was involved. So you may have heard a little bit about the Donors Choose. Gray Cloud was a recipient of several grants as well as Armstrong, where over $80,000 was donated to our district, but we didn't tell the kids. So the fun part is that we started our assembly with our kindness pledge and talked about what it meant to be kind. And then we talked about that we had some kindness that community members were extending to us, and then we were able to showcase what was given. So it was just like a fun giving event that the kids were really excited about. So we were able to circle back with some values there as well, and then kind of it extends to our gratitude that's coming up as well. And as you look at our months, we have weekly themes. So if you talked about looking at Kindness Month, we have the first week was Spreading Kindness, I Stand Up for Myself and Others week. We had Words Are Powerful week, and then we ended with Friendship week. So just really to target what we're looking for kids. And again, at an elementary level, you can see. And now we're moving into our Grateful at Gray Cloud month. And so again, this is an example of what we would provide to our staff. So what we try to do is a staff meeting before the month would start. We try to, just kind of have some activities. Usually we call it 5 minutes of fun, where we at least have a game that engages the staff. And then we also kind of go over a few things that they could do. Now, staff aren't required to do all of the activities, but it does highlight some of the things that would be great to do, and it also gives people some choice. And so these are we have some books that we put in place, and we have different challenges. And in this month, we're actually working with some partnerships, and we are doing the Family Mealtime Challenge, which is starting on the 5th. And so I know Armstrong and other elementaries have done that, but we're really tying it into having conversations about what we're grateful for, and really making sure we keep that as something that kids are seeing as a mindset, and building that throughout this month. And never are these done, but we feel like if we have a full month of focus and our staff has a strategic look on things too, we can really help make a difference with kids. So that's just a little taste of the things that we do as a community to really get to know our individuals. Any questions or that I can speak to?
Questions? Yes. Okay.
So I will say, full disclosure, I'm the social emotional learning lead for the Department of Education in my day job. So this is fascinating to me. And I'm going to ask you a similar question because I think that these are amazing activities, and over the couple months we've heard other schools talk about it, and I just think it's so important to tie this to a common framework that we're using, and then being really thoughtful about how we're assessing whether our adults and our students are actually building our skills. And to do that, you have to have a framework that you are plugging these activities into. And so I want to encourage you to think about that. I know that for the report card for K-5, there are now SEL benchmarks on there. And so thinking about how the activities you're doing, I mean, they're evidence-based activities, they're great activities, but thinking about like, how are we making sure that they're actually having the intended results that we're wanting? Because I think then it's also building that momentum for our staff to say, this is why we're investing our time in this, and also making sure that it's showing up in how are we coaching our staff, because it may seem elementary to be doing these things, but it is not inherently sort of part of teaching practice, which is, I think, what we learned in the CLRT presentation as well, is how we're building that community and how we're being intentional and how we're coaching and supporting that. So I'm really excited you're doing these great activities, and I will say I have seen my principal at my daughter's school copy activities from both your schools. So I
do a lot of sharing.
Yeah, no, and I think that that's great, and I think I'm glad to hear that. And so when I see them reflected in other schools, and so I think it's really exciting, but I want to see us tying them to some sort of larger framework and goals for our buildings.
So I would say it might make sense for you and Laura and I to sit down and have that conversation, and maybe we could just have a few minutes to talk about your expertise in that area and some of the things that we could be doing to follow through on that. So I'll have Laura email you.
You know, as far as with the strategic plan and looking at that personalization, there's a piece of tracking our behavior. And as the activities and just the culture and climate pieces are focused on, then watching how our kids are behaving is one, certainly a qualitative measure, and taking a look then what comes back from families. I happen to be also at Laura's faculty meeting talking about parent-teacher conferences, and she spent a lot of time explaining, and not explaining, but working to remind folks and to think about what parents want to know. And then we get a lot of feedback that way, qualitative. So the quantitative measures will be interesting too. And I know Brian you've had some thoughts with personalization as we move forward as well.
And I will say, I just think that it's so important to capture both the qualitative and quantitative reasons we do this, so that we can articulate why we're investing time and resources and funds, and why we're creating that environment, and why we're really intentional about doing that. But to do that, you have to have some sort of plan on how you're assessing it and how you're documenting it and capturing that. So I just think it's really important that we tell that story, as well as, you know, sort of our MCA story and graduation rate. Like, I think it's important to tell our SEL and our climate and our culture story as well in that same way.
But I'm just going to share my thought on that. My opinion would be just don't let the assessment become the work. You know, to me, the work is getting this set up and getting those activities going. And I've seen, too, in my past, when the activities get going, then we go try to track it. We spend more time tracking it than we do with the activities. So I would say there has to be a balance there, and I would lean towards this being the priority.
And again, I think both are important, and I wanted to just note, too, some of the things that we do look at. We do the surveys that we look at the 5th grade results, and we look at the 4th grade results, and we've been pretty pleased, but never feel like we're done. When we look at, I know Andy and I have talked about the data they're receiving at Armstrong, and some of our data where kids are feeling connected, they're feeling safe, and all of those important questions that hearing it from our kids really, again, when it's non-solicited, really helps. So I really appreciate hearing that from our kids and knowing that, we can see that there's work is helping, but, of course, we're never there.
You know, the other element of all of this work ties into the concerns that are so prevalent about mental health and support for kids, that this is a mental health activity for an entire staff or a school of kids as well, and that certainly there's more in-depth things that we need to provide support through counselors and things, but all of that culture and climate, when you come into the schools, it's just that positive element is palatable, and it's wonderful as far as helping kids know that that's a safe place and try to get them through and moving forward. So.
Thank you. 8.2 is the first reading of policy 414. Assistant Superintendent Mike Johnson will talk to us about this.
Good evening, Chair Brunette, board members, Dr. Jacobus, and fellow cabinet members. Policy 414, mandated reporting of child neglect or physical or sexual abuse, is required to be reviewed yearly. This has been reviewed and revised to reflect updates in state statute, definitions, legal references, and cross-references. Sharon Van Leer and Michelle Woody had reviewed the policy as well as our other ones that are required yearly and made recommendations for board information in our action. Current policy is located online. So the first reading for tonight with 414 taking place this evening with approval sought on November 15th, 2018. With 414, there were a couple very minor edits, and in bringing along all of our policies that we've been doing in the past couple years would be to take the procedures out. So those are highlighted this evening.
Anyone have questions or comments? Okay. So since this is the first reading of this particular policy, we would entertain any public comment. Seeing none, we will move on, and that will be coming back at our meeting next time to approve. Thank you.
Thank you.
9.0 are discussion items. We don't have any this evening. 10.0 are action items. 10.1 is the approval of policies 410, 413, 415, 514, 522, 524, 616, and 806. Mike will continue.
All right, thank you. These policies we had discussed 2 weeks ago. Once again, they're required yearly. Just to share with you, that's on the cover page, we had 5 of the 8. There were no changes from the first reading. However, there were 3 that were changed slightly. The first one was harassment and violence. It's really consistency in Minnesota Human Rights Act, the MHRA language referencing protected classes. So we wanted to keep that consistent, and we will do so in every policy that has that passage. The second one for student gender non-discrimination is per board request to add all school personnel on Roman numeral 2B. And then finally, for technology acceptable use and safety, with comments from a couple board members as well as a little bit of assistance from John Edison at the law office, we added a little bit more to that policy. Although it was very brief and we felt clear, actually it makes it a bit more restrictive just to be able to take a picture at a school event and post it, as some of us do here in our school district. So with a little bit of guidance from John Edison, we were able to add that language. So those would be the 3 alterations for those 3 policies out of our 8 this evening.
All right. So I will entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
So moved by Pat and second by Ron. Anyone have questions or comments on any of the policies after the changes? No? All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. 10.2 is the approval of the resolution of support of Minnesota State High School League grants, and Mike will continue with this item as well.
Thank you for placing this on the action at the meeting tonight. On Monday, Phil Kimmel came to us, to Dana and me, and mentioned that this isn't something that happens every year with the State High School League Foundation. The last time we received any grant monies from the Minnesota State High School League Foundation was 2015. So it's not a yearly occurrence. So Phil came to us and said, if we could just get this on the agenda. what we had to do is we provided the information on free and reduced lunch from last year, October 1st, 2017. And then what we did is we cross-referenced that with the number of students who participated in state high school league activities, not just athletics, but activities. And what happens is when we submit that, and we'll submit that this evening to the league, we receive some grant monies for that. It's not that much, but still it's enough to continue to help promote. For example, our activities directors will place some of those monies into the budgets of where we have a high proportion of kids who are on free and reduced lunch. Although the fees are waived for them already, we'll see it in football, boys and girls basketball, so there may be a bit more equipment for the coaches. Or if a student may need a set of spikes or a shooting shirt for basketball, they may be able to help in that way. But really, that's how our activities directors and coaches have appropriated that money. So the last time we received this was 2015. For example, at Park High, I think we had received $2,000. So approximately, $10 a student. So that's what was available back in 2015, and we just would like to get this approved so we may submit for those monies.
Cool. All right, I will entertain a motion to approve.
Second.
Whoa, that was good. All right, we'll say Sharon moved and Katie seconded. You guys almost like tied both times. All right. Any questions, comments? Do we know at all about how much? I know you said last time it was $2,000 for Park, but.
So I think for Eastridge, I think the number of students multiplied by $10 a student. So I think, I don't know, I'm not sure, I don't have the data. I think it was around 150. So let's just say 1,500 for Woodbury, 1,900 for Park this year, like I just said. And I think Eastridge's numbers are on there as well. So I think slightly under 900. It was 83 students, I believe. So that's what happened in 2015. Hopefully it's the same, and that'll benefit those programs.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. And since this is a resolution, we will approve via roll call.
Pat Driscoll,
Yes.
Heather Hirsch,
Yes.
Michelle Whitty is absent, Katie Schwartz,
Yes.
Sharon Van Leer,
Yes.
Ron Kath,
Yes.
Tracy Burnett.
Yes. Thank you. Motion passed.
Thank you very much.
All right, 11.0, reports and comments. 11.1 is superintendent's report.
Thanks. I have a couple updates from teaching and learning and REA, research and assessment and evaluation. First with our teaching and learning. The English Language Learner Program, or EL program in our school district, follows governmental and professional guidelines to support students who are learning English as a second language, ESL. EL teachers and support staff, in collaboration with classroom and content area teachers, help promote grade-appropriate learning in all academic coursework while developing students' English language proficiencies. Our EL staff is preparing for the online MDE audit, which will take place next week. Representatives from MDE will be visiting schools and interviewing staff, students, and parents about their experiences in our EL program. Our gifted education teachers are preparing to administer the COGAT, which is the Cognitive Abilities Test, to selected second and third grade students. Students qualified to take the COGAT test based on their MAP testing score, which is the measurement of academic progress test that we give kids, or from teachers' recommendation. And that COGAT score is one of the elements that allows or is utilized to estimate students' learning, reasoning, and problem solving, and then to look at entrance into a gifted program. As other teaching and learning initiatives that we are working on this fall, the implementation of our Bridges math curriculum in grades K through 2. You heard a bit about that curriculum in past meetings, but we've been implementing walkthroughs and observations in the classroom and principal professional learning community meetings to help support teachers as they move into a new curriculum. With any new curriculum, regardless of how wonderful that curriculum is, there's a lot of upfront training, and then there's a lot of work the first time a teacher teaches the curriculum. And so it's a collaboration with people helping our staff to implement the curriculum, but all the work that they do as well outside to prepare for each day's lessons. Also, providing professional development for 40 high school teachers using, I'm trying to get the turn it in, I was thinking turn using, the Turn It In program that works through Schoology, and it's a program that when kids turn in papers, then it runs through to look for plagiarism and things that could commonly be found on the internet, which I find, just as an offset, helping my son write an essay recently, is that there's so much information that they pull from, and then to be able to cite that and pull that into your own thinking and put that back in your paper has always been an art when you write a paper, but I feel the volume of research things that are out there for kids make it really difficult sometimes to make sure that you are bringing that back into your paper in a unique way. And Turn It In helps teachers then to take a look, and not just for punishment, but to help kids to see where they missed on referencing the correct way, so they can correct that when they go on to college and for other classes. We're beginning the process of infusing African American studies into our American History Social Studies curriculum. And as you remember last year or the year before when we looked at approving, we currently offer a standalone African American history course in our 3 high schools. We have elementary literacy, which is focusing on building capacity of school literacy leaders to infuse the CLRT, the culturally linguistic responsive teaching that you saw. So along with Gina and Jennifer's work to coach, we have a lot of things going on in the classes with the staff that are there in the buildings and all of the teachers in the classroom. And convening the Center and Technical Career and Technical Education Community Committee to begin structuring career and college readiness pathways for our students beginning in the middle school. And ultimately what we're looking for is that showing what an end product would look like at the high school. And Kelly, I'm thinking of the term that we talked about when you thank you, profile of a learner. So parents can take a look, kids can look early on at what would your profile look like as you prepare for a career right out of high school or going on to a military or a different career track right from high school. In REA, which is the Research Evaluation and Assessment, they've had a busy fall in the REA department. They're finishing up the second of 5 sessions of major math training with our 3 through 5 teachers. So now we've implemented a new curriculum K through 2. Now we're looking at where we're moving with our 3 through 5 at the elementary level. They're presently, or they've recently completed the fall MAP tests, which are the measurement of academic progress tests, and the testing window for all grades 2 through 7. And the team is meeting with principals and teacher leaders to look at the fall MAP data. What the fall MAP data gives the staff is an indication of where kids might be by the end of the year when they take the MCAs. So looking at where their projected growth would be, and gives us a lot of information that we can change techniques and strategies to help bolster kids if it looks like they're not growing or not on track to be proficient by the end of the year. They're using the MAP as a formative assessment we are to get an idea of where students are in math and reading at the start of the year and evaluating growth, which I just summarized, and then I just went to read it, and so I don't have to. And as we look ahead, the major focus will start to shift to the December Staff Development Day, where REA will be working to offer a variety of sessions for staff in relationship to the strategic plan. And one other thing on a positive note that you might have seen already. Last week, Mary Virgin was selected as an excellent educator by WCCO. Mary is a teacher at Cottage Grove Elementary School and was nominated by an anonymous community member. She was very surprised with the award, and reporter Kim Johnson came into her classroom on Tuesday, October 25th, and we were fortunate enough to be there, and it was such a wonderful reaction and surprise. Mary teaches reading recovery one-on-one with first grade students in the morning and teaches in the third grade classroom in the afternoon. She says she loves the work she does with students to grow their reading skills. Excellent Educator is a weekly segment on WCCO that highlights teachers making a difference. Her story ran on air yesterday, and there's a link to the story that can be found on the website. And it's really wonderful that WCCO does this for teachers, and the kids get really excited when they come in, and it's a great accolade for Mary, and a thank you for the great work that she does.
Cool, thank you. 11.2, our school board report. We'll start with Pat.
So I haven't been too busy. Last Monday, I attended a hillside meeting with the teachers with Keith and Michelle and myself, and we had about 8 people there, maybe, and we had a good discussion of the things we were looking for, how we can do things differently and improve our school district and the relationship with the board and the teachers. Tomorrow I'll be attending the AMSD, the Association of Metropolitan School Districts, and that's a political kind of a group that we combine all of our political kind of goals, and that way with the numbers we can do more. And then on November 9th I'll be attending Park High School's Vet Day celebration.
Thanks. Heather.
Yep. So I should have mentioned this earlier, but I want to thank Mike for all the back and forth on the policy revisions. I appreciated it. And I think it was a lot of work and a lot of conversation. You captured a lot of comments, I think, unfortunately, mostly from myself at the last meeting. So I appreciate that. And I want to also thank the staff that have been coming in across our district to the listening sessions that we've been having. I have, I think, 3 or 4 on my calendar in the next 2 weeks. So I know my fellow board members have been attending them, and so I appreciate the staff coming in before or after school and talking with us and sharing their thoughts. And I wanted to remind all of you, since it'll happen before our next board meeting, but if you have the evening of November 14th free, it's a Sawashco Cares PAC event. My daughter and I will be there. She will be on crutches, but still helping, hopefully. Or I'll be doing the work of myself and a 10-year-old, which shouldn't be too hard. But so if you are free, it's at Oatman Middle School, and I would encourage you to come and join us. And I did attend the AMSD Legislative Committee last week for Michelle, and they talked about their legislative agenda and reviewed that. And so I think it is good to know, obviously, their priorities are on stabilizing funding and working on strategies to address the achievement gap. But it was a really good conversation, and so I appreciated being part of that and hopefully represented Michelle's views well. That was it.
Thank you. Ron?
First of all, attended the CFAC meeting, and again, Dan does a really good job of leading the meeting. Unfortunately, if he could just get his board member rep there on time one of these, and if I could get traffic down pat, but it's just a fun committee to serve on, a very engaging, interactive team that shares their opinions very easily. So I always appreciate the support we get from our community and those members within that community. I've attended the Armstrong listening session with our staff. Again, it was a nice session to bring forward at least what we've talked about as a board, to get out into the schools, to listen to our teachers. I know at ours it wasn't so much of a dialogue, it was more for us to listen, and we wanted to hear the concerns brought forward from the teachers and staff that showed up. The other thing for the board members that haven't been through it, the one thing I would recommend, I know when that was the first one was Armstrong. And so when Michelle and I went there, the first thing we noticed when we got done is we should have probably looked at how much time does each teacher have or staff have to be able to share with us, because we didn't do that, and next thing you know, we got in dialogue, and then people had to just get up and leave, and we were kind of halfway through it. So I think it's good to take an opportunity to set how much time you have available, and then try to schedule a little bit of time is what ideas do they have too? Not so, we want to get their concerns, but also what ideas? Obviously, Dr. Jacobus has got the new process going to solicit that, electronically. So we've got a lot of different avenues for that feedback to come forward. So I'm excited to bring that, especially with negotiations, on the horizon for us. I think it's going to be a really good deal. So those are kind of the advice I wanted to share with my board member friends. I do want to let folks know too that our building, or that school for sure, was secure, because my calendar got messed up and I showed up at the meeting at 7. I thought we were going to really start early, and everything was pretty well locked up. I couldn't get in, and when I found out the meeting started at 8, that made me feel good that nobody can just get in and out of the school before hours. So that was good, and thankfully I live close enough to the school. I could run home, get another cup of coffee, and still come back down. So it all worked out. And last but not least, my board colleagues and everybody, I'm a big deer hunter, and it's the big deer hunting opener coming up. So I just want to wish my fellow hunters out there a safe and hopefully successful hunt coming up as we go into the rifle season here in Minnesota.
Hey.
Okay, and I also attended a couple of the teacher or staff sessions. I attended Bailey and Cottage Grove Middle School, and the elementary school seemed to be well attended. The middle school was. People just kind of walked through and felt bad for us, so they sat down. But we still had a good conversation. That was their words, not ours. But we still ended up having a really good conversation, and it's really nice to get out there and talk to the staff and really get to sit and listen, because a lot of times, like me personally, the schools that I'm in are the ones that my kids are at, and I'm usually there as a parent, and some teachers feel comfortable coming up, but some are like, oh, that's not, you're not here for that. So this was really a nice opportunity for us, and I think for the staff as well. And they shared a lot of good thoughts, and they had a lot of good questions, and the conversations are just really open and casual, and that's what I like about it. So I look forward to hopefully getting in a couple more.
Thank you. Sharon.
Okay. I also attended the Bailey is it elementary?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. How do I know? Listening session, and I too appreciate all of the candid conversation that we had, and I think the teachers were very open. Some of the things you know about your children and how they deal with them daily, they deserve an award, believe me. I'm really compassionate about the needs that they talked about and the struggles that they have, and I think it's worth listening to, and I appreciate them tremendously. And then I want to thank Mike for all those emails. Yeah, but you did a nice job, baby. Okay. And then finally, hats go off to Christina for the job well done, and Kevin and Trina. They came, we had lunch. Yeah, we sure did. Good lunches. And I'm not telling who paid for them either. But the work that they are doing is incredible, and I think they make a great team. And I think we're going to come up with some really good things that we're going to be doing soon. So, and then the very last thing I want to say is that to our Jewish community, in light of all the things that happen, our prayers are with you, and that if anyone is interested, they can contact me, that the Jewish law students at Mitchell Hamlin School of Law will be doing an ecumenical service to listen to their concerns.
Thank you. And I just got back from China, and I'm just readjusting from that 13-hour change, so I have not been anywhere in the last couple weeks. So with that, 12.0, future meeting dates. 12.1, Thursday, November 15th is a regular board meeting, and December 13th is a regular board meeting.
Tracy, do we have a listening session before the one on November 15th?
Yes, we do. I'm sorry. So we do have a listening session before the board meeting on November 15th. I'll be there, and it was from 5:30 to 6:15. Thank you. 13.0 is our closed session. 13.1 pursuant to Minnesota Statute 13D.03 for labor negotiations. I will entertain a motion for us, and there may be action, following the closed session. So I will need a motion to move to closed session.
So moved.
It's moved by Sharon, second by Heather. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
I love driving. As much as I complain about driving, I love driving.
Everything is extra. So it starts at a pretty light,
No, I can't sleep in the car.
You're up to 9 hours to get done.
Cars, trains, planes, automobiles, whatever it is. All right.
I'm sorry? Okay, so we're ready. You ready? All right, so I will entertain a motion to go back to the regular meeting.
Second.
It's moved by Sharon, second by Ron. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. So now we need a motion to amend our agenda to add 10.3, which is the approval of the agreement with our bus mechanic employees. So I'll entertain a motion to add that item.
So moved.
Second.
So moved by Sharon, second by Pat. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. So now we are on action item 10.3, which is the approval of the agreement with our bus mechanic employees, and our Director of Human Resources, Kevin Witherspoon, will present.
Thank you. Good evening. So I'm here tonight to approve the wages and benefits for bus mechanics. Negotiations towards a new collective bargaining agreement between the South Washington County Schools, ISD 833, and the bus mechanics, Local 70, have resulted in a tentative 2-year agreement to be effective July 1st, 2018 through June 30th, 2020. Members of the bargaining unit approved the tentative agreement on October 30th, 2018. The economic costings of the tentative agreement includes the following: 2.5% increase in wages the first year and a 2.2% increase in wages the second year. No changes on health insurance at all, and then other benefits, there are no changes either. TSA match remains at $1,750 annually. The only change would be to language was vacation. Following 5 years of service will increase to 16 days. Following 10 years of service will increase to 19 days. Following 15 years of service will increase to 22 days, and following 20 years of service will increase to 25 days. Administration recommends approval.
All right, I will entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
So moved by Sharon and second by Pat. Any questions? I know we did just discuss this at our closed session, but hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. So if we have nothing further, we are adjourned. 14.0.